Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget.
And
Hello.
welcome to Sounding the Shadows. And of course, this week we know that it's number 301. And thank you very much to those who contacted us and congratulated us for reaching the number 300.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
really, it's seeing these names that we've seen over the years coming up again and again, isn't it? It's so lovely, really.
It
It's
is,
like
yeah.
having a sort of extended, I don't know, community maybe is the right word. I don't know.
I don't
Anyway, it
know.
has been nice.
It is nice though, but you're quite right. When you look at an email or something and you see a name on it, and there's a whole stream of memories. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
From some people for a long, long time, some for a shorter time. But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank
It's really
you.
good that you
Absolutely.
take the trouble to do that.
Well, last week, Adrian, I remember mentioning the weather in England, and it was streaming with rain. It was shooting sideways, this rain.
It wasn't where I was. Where I was, I was here in the house, and the conservatory. The rain was. It was as though someone with a massive bucket had just taken one massive bucket full and turned it upside down, and it crashed onto the roof of the conservatory.
Maybe God thought you needed a massive bucket of water crashing down on you when you're trying to work. I don't
When
know.
I wasn't in the room.
Oh, you weren't in the room. That's where your desk is and your study, so I thought maybe.
So he missed. You should pay more attention to where you should pay more attention to where I am.
Well, I'd be very
Anyway.
worried if it had been come through the ceiling in any other room. Anyway, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say that I really hope this applies to people in other parts of the country, because yesterday we had the most glorious day, didn't we?
Well, I don't know whether it was in comparison to all the others, but it was a really, really sunny day. The sky was blue. It was actually my sister-in-law down in the south of England said that it was the same there. So maybe it was the same all
So
the way
maybe
down.
it was, but it was
a beautiful day. And I think we went out. I went out, and I said, "Well, I'll take that big overcoat because we've been so used to thinking it's going to be okay, and then finally we freeze, and we didn't need anything like that."
No,
We
I
went up
was-
to the castle at
Bishop
Auckland, and we walked while I was on my chair, and we went right round the outside of the castle on the grass.
Well, it's the Bishop's Palace. I'm never quite sure if you call it a castle or a palace or whatever, but it's just so lovely there anyway. And then we had soup in the courtyard, didn't we?
You can go in a back entrance through the gate there, and you're in a courtyard which is part of the cafe there, but actually would have been impossible at almost at any other time this year.
Yeah.
And this day it was warm.
And the soup
Extraordinary.
was fabulous, and being there was fabulous. But what I really loved, Adrian, was, if you remember, we walked along then, because we had Gracie, our dog, with us, and we walked along to another garden within the whole complex, and we sat on a bench, and three things happened, didn't they? They were so tiny. But it was like the beginning of something quite lovely. It was the hottest day, and obviously one small ladybird thought it was the hottest day and was there.
Yeah.
And then, can you remember what else we saw?
What is it the Americans call them?
Oh, ladybugs.
Ladybugs,
Everyone's calling them ladybugs now, but I'm not. I'm calling them a
People
ladybird.
who do that should be shot.
Well, anyway, that was the first thing, and I thought, oh, that ladybird knows it's spring. And then, what was the next thing? Can you remember?
Was it the butterfly?
It was the butterfly, and it was a red admiral butterfly. And apparently it used to be called the red I can't even
Admirable.
say admirable. And that made so much more sense to me, because it's just very beautiful.
So there's no actual reason for it to be called
Admiral.
the red admiral.
Apparently
It's just
not.
An
I always-
admirable insect.
Yes, I always vaguely thought it was something to do with some flag or something, but anyway, there it was. And then the final thing, apart from a dandelion that had popped up, and obviously very happy to see some sun, was a bumblebee on some beautiful hyacinths.
It was, yeah.
And my first thought was, yes, spring is right. And my next thought was how vulnerable they are. because they've all decided that the warm weather has come and that something lovely is happening, but it could be snowing the next day, and then what do they
Right,
do?
yeah. And criteria change, don't they? Now that I spend most of my time in a electric powered chair, I'm always looking at the terrain anyway, at stone, at paths, at,
Yeah, of course
at
you are,
summit.
yeah.
And when the weather dries, suddenly the grass is dry enough to go on, but you have to be careful because otherwise you'll get stuck in soft grass. But those things, I mean, I feel enormous apology ought to be made by me to all the people who I've known who are in chairs, and I have never understood or never noticed just how incredibly difficult it is to I think mainly to not be distracted by other things, because you always thinking, if I go too near that edge and I tilt, that's a terrible thing to happen, and etc. etc. But to have a day like that and to be able to be relaxed was...
Well, I think as well,
lovely,
sometimes when you do see people struggling on two sticks, you think they just need to make that little jump. And I was thinking, that little... I don't mean
Sorry?
they need to make a little jump. I meant they...
Have you gone raving mad? I think those people on sticks should make a little jump.
I meant a little emotional or mental jump to the point of thinking, I jump over the fear of how you're going to look in a chair, or how, or whether this is the downward spiral, because actually the freedom that it's given us has been wonderful in many ways. Well, I know you're looking at ramps and the camber of the path and all the rest, but it has given us a freedom.
I've developed a sort of fascination with the phrase adverse camber. I'm sure it ought to mean much more than it does, but it is interesting because it means that if you're tilted the wrong way on a bend, it's very easy to misjudge it and get and fall over. Not that that's actually happened yet. Anyway, enough of my boring wheelchair stuff.
Well, it wasn't boring sitting there just for a moment. I mean, the contrast between all of the news and the world. And I think what's coming through in these last few days is just how mixed motives can be in doing something that clearly appeared to be right at the time, or made sense at the time, or would give you what you wanted at the time. And then it clearly isn't. And it isn't enough. And because we've had a son and new daughter-in-law living in Saudi Arabia, the whole thing has become more pointed, hasn't it? I mean, they have now got out of Saudi Arabia, but they probably will be needing to go back because that's where they work. But it's made everything much closer to home. And I think what struck me, Adrian, is that the contrast between our fascination of seeing the bumblebee and the ladybird, and no, I was going to say, is the vulnerability. That's what I was thinking, and also how immediate that experience was. I mean, we're constantly aware how global the world is now, how something that happens somewhere else affects us. So the petrol prices affect us if something happens the other side of the world. And suddenly there's something right in front of us that's so small and so beautiful that it reminds you a little bit of, I don't know, of what? Of what? I suppose of that looking really closely at what we actually have, I don't know, brings us back to something, to maybe a hope, maybe a possibility that things can change.
Well, as one well-known writer said, you don't need, and some people will say I'm wrong before I finish the sentence, said you don't need poetry and creativity and all sorts of other things like that, beauty, in order to survive, but they are what makes survival worthwhile. And when you see something or you experience something again, and it's a reminder of how strong and how powerful they are, because they create more joy than most other things, ridiculously.
Oh no, they do. They do. I was talking to a gardener today, and he doesn't have a lot of time for the rest of the world, but he loves the thing. Well, he doesn't actually. No, he doesn't. He's got quite strong views about the rest of the world, but
The whole
he loves
of the rest of the world.
more or less. But he loves the natural world,
Yeah.
and he loves trees, and he loves walking through woods, and that resets him, and that gives him something beyond words.
Steve Martin, interestingly, was asked, the film actor, was asked, now that he'd reached this age, what were the things that he enjoyed most
What did you
in
say?
the world. He said, the natural world and every meal. And I think I do.
Okay.
I do identify with that. That I have a sort of profound interest in things, seeing things that are lovely, but I'm curious about each meal that I'm going to have.
I was just going to say, right, okay.
I know 2-3 places within a few miles of here when you can get incredible crushed avocado with poached eggs on, with incredible flavouring. And I look forward to it with huge pleasure.
Do you know,
every time we
Adrian, I
go
think
there.
that is going to be the subject of quite a few emails of other people who know very nice places where you can get crushed
Yeah, but it's got to be good.
avocado on
It's gotta be
sourdough.
good. I'll tell you one thing I feel sad about at the moment, and that is I've always written poetry, and having said that, some of it is absolute rubbish. Every now and then I've written something that has something to be said for it, but it's not about, for me, about the quality of it necessarily. It's about the impetus that makes it happen, because I became, some years ago, somebody who needs to write like that sometimes, because something happens or I feel something, and I want to put it in a place where it can be kept. And Dylan Thomas always talked about the hewn coils of poetry. That it's an exquisite job to take the block you've produced, a block of words, and carve it. And I do enjoy that. But whether it's
And you're very
emotional
fortunate
energy,
because
I don't know.
You do have, like a painter or a musician, you actually do have the ability to carve something rather lovely sometimes, whereas I don't. So let's be honest, we don't all create beautiful poetry or beautiful paintings or beautiful music.
No, but
some of us
I'd
do.
love someone to tell me why, whether it's emotional energy or something else that you lose, or whether it's confidence. I don't know. I mean, every now and then I do write something that might be reasonably described as a poem, but they've been very important to me. Yeah.
Are you going to read something now, Adrian?
Well, I won't read something by. Oh, it is by me actually. Yeah.
Adrian.
No, I will. Yeah. Sorry.
What are you talking about?
Well, this is something that actually happened.
Well, that's why we
Near where
thought
we
this
live.
would be quite interesting.
I'd forgotten we talked about it. Yeah, there's a place a few miles from
where we used to live in
yeah,
Sussex, yeah.
which is very beautiful, and I loved it. And one day I lost it, a bit like my poems, And we were walking down from this little tiny chapel, and there was a pathway from there that runs steeply down towards the valley. And when you get to the bottom, you come to the village of Alfriston, and there's a church there which is known as the Cathedral of the Downs. And we loved that walk, and I don't quite know what happened, but it begins with a thought about, the story of Jesus on the boat when he falls asleep. And I've always wondered, and still wonder, what he dreamt about. And all the other things about his actual existence as a man. Anyway, this is what I wrote afterwards about that experience.
Adrian is now putting on his glasses.
Or put it another way, he's not, because they're folding all over the place. Right, okay.
He has them on.
It's called When You Slept. When you slept on the cushion in the boat, did you dream the walk we took, you and I, one autumn afternoon, from that little church at Lullington, through Litlington, to Alfriston, where ageless fields of flint and chalk fell seamlessly to merge and meet with green and violet shadows that were circling and embracing the Cathedral of the Downs. I was in terror of a storm that day. The red and gold flew and fluttered round our heads like little brittle messages of loss and pain and death. The surging valley side beyond us, once a way to rise, I suddenly discerned was nothing but a dumb and loveless wall. It was so sad to see familiar beauty now a thing of ugliness. I dropped my gaze. You spoke a word, perhaps, a firm command into the centre of that raging storm, and when at last I raised my eyes, I saw with grateful wonder that the splendour had returned.
So was it, I mean, sounding really prosaic, was it that suddenly there was some light in the middle of the storm? Because sometimes that can happen, can't it? You'll see a flash of a little gap in the sky, or a...
I don't think it was that. I think
it was within you.
I think it was that the natural state of things creates different metaphors. And on that day, the flutter of trees and the wind and the feel was a negative one. And because there were other things on my mind, things I was concerned about, they as it is 2 a.m, they increased in size, and I transferred my negative feelings onto what I was looking at. But it was a real end to it. That I did suddenly realise that it was more than any of those things. It was a place that brought me such peace and joy, which it did at the end. So I was very glad.
And I mean, I know this. I'm not trying really to make a parallel between seeing a little bumblebee and a ladybird, and a butterfly, and a dandelion. But I do think the darkness of the period we are living in at the moment, it can very easily feel as though nothing can penetrate that there is a level of darkness around, and I think a level of evil as well, and pain and confusion. I mean, we were talking last week about the young people in Iran, for example, who normally look forward to Easter, to this springtime, and there's nothing there. If you like, it's very similar to the poem. You know, there's nothing. It's all gone. But I also know that there are always possibilities of something resurrection, I suppose, something that breaks through.
Yeah.
But you can't make it. You can't manufacture it. You can't force yourself to feel things or to see beauty. But I suppose I still hope that the natural hope in all people is that things can change, and that lovely things can still happen.
Well, we are in the hands of some very difficult people, but I mean, to go back to the survival thing, I mean, I think it would be good to concentrate on why we want to survive. And the reason we want to survive is because we have enough good reasons to do that. And that's one of the reasons I love having written poetry, because you can look back and see a lot of things that really moved and meant a lot to me, whatever the standard of the writing, but they captured something, and each one meant something. And I really want to celebrate what is worth surviving for.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I know, as we've been to some of these countries, for instance, that are really poor, where people struggle to eat. And crawl
But you-
about on piles of rubbish looking for.
But I remember
enough to
once
eat.
going to what they described as a carnival with no food,
Hmm.
where everybody had come together to celebrate a massive football match. Do you remember the one where some had football boots, some
Yeah,
had
of course I
plimsolls,
do,
and
yeah.
some had bare feet?
That was in
But there was
Zambia,
no
wasn't
food.
it?
There was no food. It was a day when you think about days out where you've got children who are hoping that they're going to get food from all these little stalls that
Yeah.
are selling things. Nothing.
I tell you
But
what
the
was
joy and the dancing and the
Yeah, that
singing,
was fantastic,
my
yeah.
giddy aunt, if we saw any of that.
But if
in
you
one of
remember, the most extraordinary thing about that was that the children did have something to eat, but each one had one little thing.
our- Oh, that's
Now,
right.
in England, or anywhere else I've ever been, to get 100 children to
well,
wait,
it was a school.
or
Yes,
sp-
they
yeah,
all had one
to
little
get
thing
them
to eat.
to wait to eat their thing
Yes.
until a particular moment,
Yeah.
it's almost impossible. But it was such a special thing that there was a football match, that there would come a time when you took your allocated piece of food and you ate it and you
All
enjoyed it,
together.
and it was all part of
Yeah.
the joy of the day. They did it for
Yeah.
it was actually it was a match, wasn't it? There were
Yeah.
Zambia had a very difficult problem with AIDS at that time.
Yeah, and there's another
Every
whole
time
story, really.
Every time there was a goal, someone would shout, "That's one for AIDS!" and
Yes.
they were collecting money for
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the feeling of it being worthwhile to. In
to
fact,
survive. It
when
would be great to know
Yeah.
what other people feel is the thing that suddenly breaks into gloom. To make, I know one person who listens to us and has done for years finds walks in the wood are the thing where she suddenly feels maybe, just maybe, the next day
Yeah.
could be good. It would be lovely to hear, wouldn't
I
it?
think the connection is a very strong one, you know. Well, I hadn't thought of it, but poetry, poems, are like little bird cages, and you put something in there, and you can go and look at it, you can see it, and it gives me a lot of joy. Anyway, yes, let us know. Yeah, and if anyone knows why I'm not hardly writing any poems anymore, you can let me know about that. Thank you very much. Goodbye.